There's a new Toy Story film in theaters. Does it go to infinity and beyond, or does it leave a snake in your boot? Let's find out.
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Once more unto the bridge, dear friends.
Again and again until we're both dead.
There's only like 12 stories. They change around little details, but they're all pretty much the same.
Deja vu. Something very familiar about it.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews that connect the mind. Toy Story 5 is, as it says, the fifth feature film in the Toy Story franchise. It's directed by Andrew Stanton this time, who was one of the writers of the previous installment, Toy Story 4. And this comes out 7 years after that fourth film in the franchise. But it once again features the return of voices Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, and Joan Cusack, among others, as well as some newcomers such as Greta Lee as Lily Pad, a new smart tablet that is brought into Bonnie's household, and the toys feel threatened that the age of toys is over, and hijinks ensue. Now, this review will contain spoilers of Toy Story 5, as well as certain other things. I'll be doing my spoiler-free thoughts first and foremost, though, but just so you know, there will be spoilers later on in this review. So, first things first, let's get into some spoiler-free talk on Toy Story 5. Is this as good as any of the other Toy Story films? Is this a good animated film, family film in general? I would say, if you are a fan of the Toy Story franchise, there's some stuff to like in this. There's great stuff in this. Just set some ground rules here. I was never part of the Toy Story franchise from the very get-go. I think I was 2 years old when the first film came out. But we had Toy Story 2 on clamshell VHS, and we had that in our house, and we watched that a bunch of times. And I was a fan of Buzz Lightyear Star Command: The Adventure Begins, the movie. We didn't have the Disney Channel, so I didn't see the TV series. But I thought Toy Story 3 was a great way to end a trilogy of films. And then Toy Story 4 felt like it was one of those, why did we need this? But it managed to squeak by, and it justified its existence just barely, in my opinion. But I didn't think we needed a fifth one. Yet, here we are, number 5 in the franchise. And this one, I think, has the hardest time justifying its existence, partially. What I think works best about this movie is Jessie with Joan Cusack. She steals the show. She is the best. She is arguably the main character in this movie, and for a good reason. I mean, we get to dive more into her backstory. I mean, you thought we had more of it in with Toy Story 2. We got that little bit of her story there, but we get to dive more into it. We get to revisit some things from her past on that, and we get to see her dynamic as the new leader of the toys, because as if you may recall from Toy Story 4, Woody is now out in the wild saving lost toys around in the outside, and Jessie's now the new sheriff, and Buzz is her deputy. And we see her dynamic once this new intruder comes in, Lily Pad. The age of toys is over, as some other toys declare, and it screens everywhere. And how does she respond to that? And it's facing these fears of being replaced, and we've seen this happen before with her. And the way her story is handled between her and Lily Pad, as well as Buzz gets a little bit in there as well. That is easily the best part of this movie. And I also love the fact that mainly with Toy Story 3, we didn't get as much of it in Toy Story 4. But with 3, we got our first taste of, get inside the world of the kid, where we see their fantasies come to life. In 3, it was that whole thing at the beginning with the train scene fantasy. Here, we get to see what Bonnie is experiencing in her imagination with these toys, and they changed the art style a little bit, so it's a little bit more two-dimensional looking. And it looks fantastic. I love that animation. I wish we got more of that. But ultimately, I think that that would make a great short film, maybe a TV special for Disney Plus, I should say, for Toy Story. And then this would have been one of the greats in the Toy Story franchise. As it is, though, this does get weighed down with a whole bunch of other stuff in this to make it feature length. One is, you get Woody back, of course, you're bringing Tom Hanks back in, and he and Buzz have their repartee going, but that feels really tacked on to this. There's also a subplot with a shipwreck and a whole bunch of Buzzes who get released into the wild on demo mode, and they have to find their way to Star Command and where that leads. And that comes back in the end, but I'll talk about that in the spoiler section. But for my money, that just felt like filler. Again, that would be a nice little short film on that front, but it's in this movie and it feels tacked in just to pad out the runtime a little bit. And also, I feel like this movie gets its message confused a little bit. Maybe not confused so much as it gets diluted. It starts out very strong with the age of toys are over, kids are staring at their screens, and it's they're not making friends, it's catastrophe, and yes, it's a great message to be had, and then by the end, like, they sort of try to walk that back, where it's like, oh, well, these devices can be good, they help you learn things, they can help you connect with the right people, and it's like, okay, you sort of make a head fake towards that to make a more balanced approach, but it kind of gets forgotten when, excitement, things, action scene. And it's like, I don't know really, I don't know if we really revisit that in as meaningful way as we could. And I think that message gets kind of lost when you're dealing with all these other sorts of things happening. And that is part of the problem. Like, all the other Toy Story movies have very clear messages, Toy Story 1 was about dealing with, having something new bring in doesn't mean being replaced entirely. Toy Story 2 is, finding out where you belong. Toy Story 3 is being okay with moving on and changing circumstances, as well as, existentialism, the specter of death, you could say. Toy Story 4 was a little bit of existentialism, but also, kind of repeat Toy Story 3 a little bit of being able to move on and find your place in the world. And this one, it was trying to be, screens are bad, but they also could be good. And I'm not sure it really stuck the landing on that front. And that, again, I sort of lay the blame on the fact that this script feels a little scattershot, and it would have worked great as a short film. Less than an hour's, call it a TV special, but that's stretch of time, but they had to pad it out to an hour and a half, hour 47-minute runtime, and it really I don't think it really supported that runtime as far as I'm concerned from a story standpoint. Also, we ran into this with the last movie, but especially in this one, you get a whole bunch of new characters, bunch of celebrity voices, and they get their couple of lines of dialogue, but you don't get as much. You kind of wonder why they're there. The original toys barely get maybe 2 lines apiece. While Sean gets a couple of lines, and whoever they got to replace Don Rickles gets a couple lines, and whoever they got to replace Jim Varney gets a couple of lines, and that's about it. And you got other celebrity voices. I will say, Conan O'Brien voicing the device Smarty Pants does a really good job. I think he plays into Jesse's story quite well. I was kind of he starts out a little annoying, but he grew on me by the end. I think he did a good job on that front. But overall, I would say this movie gets lost in the weeds a little bit. And again, I'll talk about this in spoiler. The ending did not necessarily work for me. This one plot point especially, I think, feels like a bit of a cop-out, like they kind of wrote themselves into a corner. They were trying to figure out how to get get out of that situation, and they kind of had to write backwards to get to figure it out. So that's kind of how I feel about this. If I was going to give Toy Story 5 a letter grade, I would say this grades as a B-. A little bit better than average for overall, but as far as the Toy Story films, definitely not the best by any means, and it did not seem to justify its existence as well as the other films. And if I was going to weigh this in on the scale of unoriginality, I would say this weighs in at reworked scripts, same puzzle pieces assembled in a different order. So those are my main points, spoiler-free thoughts on Toy Story 5. Now let's get into some spoiler talk as to certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. So a couple of things. One is we kind of have to, deal with I won't call it the elephant in the room, but you have to go down the list of how many Toy Story tropes does this movie repeat. And I was trying, there are some easier than others. I tried to run down the list. So from Toy Story, the first Toy Story, you've got the whole toys being replaced by a brand new shiny thing. And there's also this theme of the lost toy being needing to be rescued. In this case, Jessie need to be rescued. From Toy Story 2, we have a reanimated version of Jessie's abandonment scene. And we also have the climax involving, toy horses chasing down a vehicle. You got that going for it. From Toy Story 3, you've got, the whole toys being put into storage bits. It was more of a plot point in Toy Story 3, but they get that here as well, with the kid, thinking he's aging out of it. And you also have the fantasy element being played out, as I mentioned in the spoiler-free section. You also have, from Toy Story 4, you have the banter of the toys arguing over who's in charge, sort of thing. You've got, in 4, it was Woody trying to assert control when it was the ragdoll toy or whatever, and then Woody arguing with Bo Peep as to who's in charge. And here we've got Jessie and Buzz kind of articulating, and then Woody and Buzz also arguing over who's in charge. So there's probably others in there, and it's probably a little bit more generic than others, but I kind of wanted to run down the list of so many familiar elements of this that I just felt the need to copy-paste into this script. For better or worse, some work better and some work worse, I think. You have to decide on that front. The other Disney connection I could think of was the Buzz's subplot of him trying to propose to Jessie. And to me, this made me think of Rescuers Down Under, with Bernard trying to propose to Bianca the whole time, and by the end they finally do engage. Buzz keeps getting interrupted, Bernard kept getting interrupted. So it's something that's been done in Disney before. Other movies have done it too, but that's just the one that popped into my mind. And then finally, the commentary of too many, people all glued to their screens or whatever. Jessie looks out from the roof, you see all the various windows, people just staring at their screens the whole time. It made me think of the one scene in the Ring, surprisingly, where that shot for shot that seems to be copied over. That was from the Ring. That was also a commentary of everyone's various generations are watching TV all in the same building, and so there's a copy paste on that front. So, commentary's been, that movie's over 25 years old, I think, at this point. So that one, you need to, this commentary's been around for ages, so it's nothing new. If you want to take solace in the fact, kids these days, they're up to their screens. Well, that's been a problem for decades at this point. So, take that for what it's worth. So those are my main points of comparison with this movie and others. I'm sure there's others to be had. What did you think of Toy Story 5? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree, disagree? Did I miss something? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to look for my next movie review, which will be for Supergirl, which comes out the 26th of June, I believe. So be sure to look for that. And if you like this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially subscribe. I would very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.